All right, I think we're good to go. So let's confirm everything is running smoothly. All right, I think we're good. Cool. All right, let's get right to it. So, hello everyone and welcome. Really glad you're here today. So, the topic we're going to dig into is one of those problems that almost every growing business hits at some point and almost nobody sees coming. We call it today's webinar. We called it why does inventory accuracy drop as the business scales? So why is that the bigger and more successful you get, the harder it becomes to actually know what's in your warehouse, facility, whichever. So over the next 50 minutes or so, I'm going to share what I've seen working with warehouses across very different industries, what causes accuracy to slip, what it really costs, and most importantly, what do we do about it? All right, so quick introduction first, and then we'll get straight into the content. So let's do that. Okay, we're good. Internet is acting up today a little bit, but anyways. So a quick word about who I am for those of you who are seeing me for the first time. My name is Stan. I'm the partner and client solutions executive at Cleverance. So a little bit on my background. I spent more than 10 years working hands-on in warehouse and inventory automation. And I really do mean hands-on. I've walked through wholesale warehouses, dealership, parts departments, manufacturing floors, e-commerce fulfillment centers, you name it. I actually worked as a picker before at an actual warehouse in Canada, so quite an understanding of the whole process. Every single one of these facilities and that I've visited have their own quirks, its own pressure points, its own version of the same recurring story. And the reason I love this work is that warehouse problems are indeed solvable. They look messy from the outside, but once you understand what's driving them, the path forward is actually pretty clear. That's what I want to share with you today. Here's how the next 45 minutes or so are going to flow. Let's take a look at that. What do we have for the plan? We'll start with the why. So why scaling fundamentally changes inventory control and why the methods that worked when you were smaller stop working as you grow. From there, we'll look at where accuracy actually breaks in day-to-day operations, the specific points in the workflow where errors creep in. Then we'll talk about the hidden business costs, because this isn't really a warehouse problem. It's a business problem that just happens to surface in the warehouse. After that, we shift into the solution side. We'll explore the automation opportunity, walk through a practical transformation path, look at a real case of a business that have done it. And at the end, you'll get, as always, a free guide that you can download and use immediately. So, all right, let's start with something most business owners don't realize until it's already happening to them. And that is inventory accuracy. So here's a pattern I see in almost every client I've worked with. When a business is small, a few hundred SKUs, one location, a tight team, inventory accuracy is honestly not that hard. You can almost feel where everything is. Your team knows the warehouse intuitively. The number in the system more or less matches what's on the floor. And then growth happens. And growth doesn't arrive politely, one variable at a time. It arrives all at once. Suddenly, you're not managing a few hundred SKUs, you're managing thousands. So, where you used to have one location, now you have two, maybe three. Your team has doubled, and the new hires don't have that intuitive feel for where things live. Daily transactions have tripled. And on top of all that, exceptions start appearing. Partial shipments, returns, damaged goods, urgent transfers, you name it. That nobody designed a process for when the business was smaller. And the way I describe it to the clients is this: inventory starts moving faster than the information. This is the heart of the problem. As volume grows, the physical reality of the warehouse, so goods arriving, goods moving between zones, goods being picked, stock being adjusted because of damage or recounts, all of that is happening in real time, every minute of every shift. But the information about all that movement, it's still flowing through the same systems and the same manual steps you set up when you were a quarter of the size. Paper forms get filled out and entered at the end of the day. The ERP gets a batch update once a shift. Someone has to physically walk to a computer to log a transfer. So while the goods are moving at the speed of the business, the data is moving at the speed of the paperwork. And that gap between physical reality and what your system says is where every inventory problem starts. So let's zoom in. Where exactly does this break down? Let's take a look at that. In my experience, the breakdown almost always happens at the same handful of points. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. It usually starts at receiving. Goods come in, but they're not registered instantly. Maybe the paperwork sits on a desk for an hour, or the data gets keyed in at the end of the shift. That gap is where the very first errors creep in, because you can't trust your stock numbers if your inbound data is already hours behind reality. Then there's manual picking confirmation. A picker grabs the item, writes them down on a sheet, and someone enters it later. Every single step in that chain is an opportunity for a mistake. Wrong SKU, wrong quantity, missed lines, illegible handwriting. All of those things are just there. Stock transfers tend to be even worse because they're often handled informally. Someone moves a pallet from zone A to zone B, and either nobody updates the system or they update it the next day from their memory. On top of that, cycle counts get delayed because they're disruptive and pretty much inconvenient. And the longer you wait between counts, the bigger the discrepancy you eventually will find. And finally, the ERP only updates after the fact, which means leadership is making decisions based on yesterday's reality, not today's. And here's what happens when those breakdowns, start to compound. And this is where things get really interesting and a little uncomfortable, because what starts as a small, almost invisible delays turns into something much bigger. A few minutes of lag at receiving becomes a real discrepancy by lunch. A handful of pick and errors per day multiplied across hundreds of orders becomes a meaningful accuracy problem by the end of the week. And here's the part that's really damaging. Once your team realizes the system can be trusted, they stop trusting it. They start doing their own manual checks, keeping their own spreadsheets, walking to the shelf to just go look. So now you have two warehouses running in parallel, the official one in your ERP and the unofficial one your team actually relies on. And the gap between them keeps growing. And the cost of all this, it's actually much bigger than most leadership teams realize. And let's take a look at that. Here's why this matters at the business level, not just the warehouse level. Inventory errors don't stay in the warehouse. They create friction across the entire company. It starts with lost sales. Your system says you have stock, your customer orders, and then someone discovers the item isn't actually there. That order doesn't just get delayed. Sometimes that customer just goes somewhere else. To compensate, businesses start carrying more stock than they need, so overstock, as a safety buffer, which ties up cash and warehouse space. And when items actually do run out, you end up with emergency purchases, so paying premium prices to a supplier just to keep things moving. So it doesn't sound too good. Now, meanwhile, orders that should ship today end up shipping tomorrow or the day after, which means delayed orders, and that's the visible part. The invisible part is lower customer trust. Customers don't tend to always complain. They just slowly stop coming back. And here's the disconnect that makes it so hard to fit. One of the most striking things I see in companies dealing with this problem is how differently leadership and operations describe pretty much the same reality. Leadership opens the dashboard and sees stock is available. They see the ERP has the number. They see inventory is too high when they look at carrying costs. And they wonder why orders keep getting delayed despite all that stock that is on the books. Meanwhile, on the warehouse floor, the picker is standing in front of an empty shelf, even though the system says the item is there. The team is dealing with picking data that's wrong. Some SKUs simply can't be found. The warehouse is operating in a completely different reality from what the dashboard shows. And this isn't anyone's fault, really. I mean, the leadership team is reading what the system tells them, so they believe it. That's normal. The operations team is dealing with what's actually there. They're both right, and that's exactly why the problem is so hard to address. The fix isn't telling one side that they're wrong. The fix is closing the gap so both sides see exactly the same truth. So that's that. And now a lot of companies try to solve this just by throwing more people at it. Let me tell you why that doesn't work either, based on my experience. Um, and this is one of the most counterintuitive lessons in warehouse management, to be honest with you. When accuracy starts slipping, the instinct is to hire more people. And it makes sense on paper: more hands, more control, right? So it does seem correct way to solve this issue, but it doesn't actually work that way. Adding people to a manual process actually creates even more moving parts, not fewer. You get more handovers between team members where information can drop. You get more interpretations of the same procedure because every person reads the instructions a little different. You get more paper from circulating, more rework when something goes wrong, and more dependency on a few experienced people who happen to know how things actually work around here. So you double your headcount and discover that your accuracy didn't double. It might even have gone worse because complexity grew faster than your team's ability to coordinate. Um, so if more people isn't the answer, what's actually causing the accuracy decline? Let's get to the root of that problem. There, okay, it did switch. Nice. So when I look across all the warehouses that I've personally worked with, the root cause always come back to the same handful of things. The first one is that inventory updates happen too late. So by the time the system reflects what happened, decisions have already been made on the old number. The second is that processes aren't standardized. So the same task gets done 5 different ways depending on who's doing it. The third is that data entry is manual, and humans typing numbers into systems is statistically one of the most error-prone activities in any business. We're people, we have different days. It happens, but it is a fact that it's one of those biggest issues come from that. Um, the fourth, and this one is huge. The fourth point is that the ERP is disconnected from the floor. The system that runs the company has no real-time connection to where the work is actually happening. And the fifth is that exceptions are handled informally. Every damaged item, every miscount, every urgent transfer becomes a side conversation that never makes it into the actual data. Um, you'll notice none of these are technology problems on the surface. They're workflow problems, but every single one of them can be solved with the right technology applied to the right workflow. And that's the shift I want to walk you through next, because solving this isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about turning inventory accuracy into a real competitive advantage. I think I have like a little bit of a shade from the window. Sorry about that. But anyways, so let's look at the transformation opportunity. So here's the part I genuinely love about this work. Inventory accuracy isn't just a problem you fix. When you do it right, it becomes a real competitive advantage. Think about what changes. You get real-time visibility. So leadership and operations finally see the same picture at the same time. Execution becomes much faster because the data that drives decisions is already there, not waiting on someone to key it in. Errors drop dramatically, not because people get smarter, but because the system catches these mistakes before they propagate. Planning gets better because the numbers you're planning against are actually true. And customer service, of course, improves because when a customer asks if something is in stock, the answer is actually reliable. And this isn't theoretical. Cleverness customers routinely see these kinds of improvements once their workflows are properly digitized. It's a typical outcome, not an exception. But to get there, we need to shift on how we think about the goal itself. This is the mindset shift, and it really matters. Most companies, when they think about inventory accuracy, think about counting. How often do we count? How many people are counting? When was the last cycle count? Those are usually the questions. But counting is a backward-looking activity. You count to find out what already happened. The real goal isn't better counting. The real goal is controlled inventory movement at each step. Every item is tracked. Every transaction is recorded. Every location is accurate. Every user action is logged. When you control the flow, you don't need to count as much because the count is happening continuously in real time by design. Um, Counting is a symptom. Controlling flow is the cure. That would be my core message from this slide. So, how do you actually get there? It is a journey, and it's worth understanding how it looks like. Now let's look through that one. So I want to be honest about something here because there's a lot of marketing noise around warehouse automation. Automation is not a single technology purchase. You don't buy a box, plug it in, and suddenly you have smart warehouse. Woohoo! What automation actually is in practice is a stage transformation of three things: your processes, how you capture the data, and how your systems connect to each other. Done well, it's a series of deliberate steps that build on top of each other. Done poorly, it's just expensive technology layered on top of the same broken workflows. We've talked about this before already, but it's good to mention here as well. And the foundation of that whole journey is the moment you turn physical movement into reliable data. This is the heart of how you actually close that gap between physical reality and digital records. And there are really four building blocks that work together. Barcode is the workhorse. It's precise, it's simple, it's incredibly cost effective, and it works in almost every warehouse environment you'll encounter. For most clients, this is where the journey starts. Then there's RFID, which takes things further. It's faster, it's contactless, and it scales beautifully when you're dealing with high volumes or items that are hard to scan individually. But the technology alone isn't enough. You need mobile devices in the hands of the people doing the work, guiding them step by step in real time instead of forcing them to remember procedures or refer back to that paper. And on top of all that, you need digital workflows that remove interpretation from the equation. The system tells the worker exactly what to scan, exactly where to put it, exactly what to confirm. There's no guesswork. When movement becomes data that the moment it happens, your warehouse and your ERP finally starts telling the exact same story. And that's exactly what we try to accomplish. And this is what the before and after actually looks like on the next slide here. Look at the contrast on this slide because it's pretty striking. The old model looks like this. Someone takes a manual action. That action eventually becomes a delayed record in the system. And then later, when somebody notices the record is wrong, you do corrections. Action, delay, correction. That's the cycle most warehouses are stuck in. And they don't even realize it because it's just, how things work, right? We're all used to that for a couple of decades, I would say. The new model is completely different. The worker takes a guided action. The mobile device tells them what to do next. The action triggers instant capture. So the moment the scan, the data is in the system. And the result is trusted data. So leadership and operations are looking at the same truth in real time all day. Same warehouse, same people, often completely different operational reality. Now, this is where a lot of clients ask me a really important question. Do they need a full warehouse management system to get here? Let me show you how to think about that. And we've talked about this on the last webinar that we had. I'm just going to quickly cover it here as well, because it is very important. To break it down, I find it helpful to think about this as a warehouse maturity, like warehouse maturity as a ladder with 5 levels. Let me walk you through them quickly, because where you are on this ladder tells you what your next move should be. Level 1 is manual records. So, paper, clipboard, spreadsheets after the fact. Accuracy risk here is very high, and most growing businesses can't stay here for too long. Level 2 is ERP after the fact. Call it that. You have an ERP, but it's getting updated hours or days after the actual events. Accuracy risks are still pretty high, just dressed up a little bit nicer. Level 3 is where things really start to change. I call it barcode workflows at the point of work. So accuracy moves into a controlled state. You're no longer reacting, you're actually tracking, which is great. And then we move to level 4, where where you have ERP integrated mobility. So barcode and mobile workflows that talk to your ERP in real time. This is where most Cleverness customers operate, and honestly, this is the sweet spot for the majority of growing businesses. You get the accuracy outcomes of a full WMS without the cost and complexity of one, right? And level 5 is real-time optimization, where the system isn't just recording; it's actively guiding decisions. That's the destination for the largest, most sophisticated operations. So, to sum it up, you don't need to jump all the way to level 5 to get a massive value. For most businesses, getting to level 4, ERP integrated mobility, is where the real transformation happens, based on our experience, and we have some good numbers to prove that. So, how do you actually move up this ladder that we just talked about? Let's discuss that here. Is it on the slide? Yeah, it is. This is the path that I recommend to every client, and it works regardless of where you're starting from. Realistically, you begin with a diagnose. Like, you got to diagnose the problem. You have to generally understand where your errors are happening before you can fix anything. And I know I keep saying this, but it is one of the most important things. You have to understand where your biggest pain points are before even consulting anyone, or going out there and looking for some automation software that magically will fix everything. You got to figure out what's your actual issue right now. So, and yeah, again, I said this multiple times, but most companies unfortunately skip this step because they think they already know. They almost never do. From this diagnosis, you move to a standardize. So pick the right way to do each task and document it, because automating an inconsistent process just multiplies the chaos. Once you have a standard process, then you can digitize them. So barcode workflows, mobile devices, digital instructions at the point of work. Then comes integration. Connect those digitized workflows to your ERP so the data flows automatically in both directions. And only after all of that is done, does it actually make sense to optimize? Usually does. So tuning routes, slotting, sequencing based on the clean data you now have. So each phase builds on the one before it, as you can probably tell. Skip a phase and the next one becomes 10 times harder. And within all of that, there's a smart way to choose where to start. And let's go through that. What to automate first? Very straightforward. But I get asked this question constantly. And the answer is always the same. Start where errors are most frequent and business impact is highest. That's almost always at 5 specific tech points in the workflow. Receiving is usually the number one priority because every error that happens at the door propagates through the entire operation. Get receiving right, and a lot of downstream problems just kind of disappear. From there, you go to the next one, which is put away. So making sure things end up where the system thinks they are. So closes the loop. Then picking, because that's where errors directly hit the end customer, right? And stock transfers, because those are the silent killer of accuracy in multi-zone or multi-warehouse operations. And then finally, we have cycle counting, which becomes radically more efficient once everything else is digitized. Now, before we go further, let me save you from the most common mistakes I see businesses make on this journey. And this slide covers most of it. And let's spend a quick minute on this, because the mistakes I'm about to describe are surprisingly common, and they can turn a great automation project into a disappointing one. The first mistake is automating broken processes. Again, talked about this multiple times, but it is what it is. If your manual workflow is messy, digitizing it just gives you a faster, more expensive chaos, and you don't want that. Fix the process first, then automate. The second is ignoring ERP integration. Putting in a beautiful barcode system that doesn't actually talk to your core business system, it just means you're still typing data twice. It's not really fixing anything. And the third one is pretty huge, underestimating user adoption. Your warehouse team has to actually use these new tools, and if you don't bring them along, all the technology in the world won't help. So you gotta get them involved. They need to understand why this new system is actually going to be beneficial for them, because they're the end user, the end operator. The fourth is choosing hardware before workflows. Buying scanners and devices before you know what they need to do. I've seen that a lot of times, and it just kind of sits there. Nobody uses it. And the fifth is measuring activity instead of outcomes. Celebrating how many scans were performed, instead of whether accuracy actually improved. Very important. So that's that for this slide. Now, on the flip side, here's what the successful implementations all have in common. And let's break those down as well. So if you look at these implementations that actually deliver sustained accuracy, not just for the first 3 months, but year after year, they all share the same fundamentals. They capture data at the point of work, not later at a desk. They guide users step by step through their tasks, so workers don't have to remember complex procedures or interpret them in the moment. They validate every transaction, so every scan, every move, every pick. So errors get caught immediately, not weeks later during a cycle count. And they integrate with core systems, so the data flows automatically to wherever it needs to go. ERP, accounting system, some e-commerce platforms, whichever. And critically, they review KPIs continuously, treating accuracy as something you tune over time, not something you fix once and forget it. It doesn't work that way. And this, of course, brings up the question, what exactly should you be measuring? And let's go through these points as well. So once you've done the work, you need to know whether it's actually paying off. And there are 6 I always recommend tracking. They give you a complete picture of a warehouse health. The first is inventory accuracy rate. The fundamental, does the system match the reality number? Then pick an accuracy, which tells you what your customers are actually experiencing. Then order fulfillment time. It shows you whether the operation is getting faster as it gets more accurate, and it should be. And then stock adjustment volume. This one's one of my favorites because it's a leading indicator. When adjustments go down, it usually means the underlying processes are working, right? And then cycle count variance tells you how much your stock is drifting between counts. And then lastly, labor productivity, and closes this whole loop. Accuracy that costs you efficiency, of course, is not a win. So track all 6 together. Looking at any of them in isolation will mislead you. So that's that. And the impact of getting these numbers right reaches way beyond the warehouse itself. And this is the part that often surprises leadership teams, to be honest with you. When you fix inventory accuracy, the benefits don't stay in the warehouse. They ripple through the entire business. Sales becomes more confident, the sales team, because they can promise what's actually available. Procurement can plan properly because the numbers they're ordering against are real. And then financial reporting gets more accurate because, of course, inventory valuation finally reflects what's truly on hand. And then another important one is customer service. It improves drastically because fewer surprises mean fewer angry phone calls and unhappy customers. Lastly, operational scalability will go up, meaning when you decide to grow, your operations can handle the growth instead of buckling under it. So where does all of this lead? Where is the industry actually heading? And let's look at that as well a little bit in the future. So the future warehouse operations is not isolated automation. It's not a smarter scanner here and a better app there. That's not the case. The future is connected operational intelligence, where every piece of the operation is talking to every other piece. That means mobile workflows that travel with the worker, real-time ERP updates instead of end-of-the-day batch jobs, barcode and RFID visibility giving you continuous awareness of what's where, and data-driven decisions instead of gut feel calls. Oh, and lastly, scalable execution that grows with your business instead of actually fighting it. The companies that win the next decade aren't going to be the ones with the biggest warehouses. They'll be the ones with the most connected ones. And I think that is a very good quote out of this one. Which brings us, of course, to a practical question. What does it actually take to get there? And so what comes next? If you want inventory accuracy that actually scales with the business, here's what you need in place. You need standard processes, consistent ways of doing each task. It's got to be the same across the whole thing. Reliable data capture, so barcode or RFID, mobile, whatever fits your operation. Mobile execution, putting the system in the hands of the people doing the work. And then ERP connectivity, so nothing gets typed twice. And lastly, continuous control, treating accuracy as an ongoing discipline, not a one-time project. And that's the foundation. And the next question is, what kind of platform actually delivers all of that? Let's look at exactly that. After working with hundreds of clients across very different industries, I've come to a pretty clear view of what the right platform actually looks like. It combines four things: execution, validation, integration, and scalability, all working together. It needs mobile workflows for real operations, designed for the actual conditions of a working warehouse, not a slick demo. It needs embedded business logic, so the system understands the rules of your operation and enforces them automatically. It needs to work online and offline because no warehouse has perfect Wi-Fi everywhere all the time. When I hear that, sometimes I don't really believe it. Like 99%, it does not happen. Where were we? We need also fast integration with enterprise systems. So your ERP, accounting, e-commerce, all of those systems. So it slots into your existing technology stack instead of replacing it. So it needs flexibility across multiple use cases because the same business might do wholesale today and add e-commerce tomorrow. And it needs to give you control, visibility, and room to grow because the whole point is to support the business as it scales, not constrain it. And here's what that looks like in a real working warehouse. Take a look at this picture. We've used it multiple times, but it just covers everything very, very good. It just captures the entire transformation in a single image. So on the left, you've got a worker on the floor, scanning, moving, verifying with no paperwork in sight. He has a convenient mobile workplace right in his hand. He is doing on-site verification at the moment of action, not at the end of the day. He's a happy guy, he's doing his work. Everything became much simpler for him. On the right, you've got a supervisor who isn't running around the warehouse trying to figure out what's happening. He's seeing it all in real time. Remote supervision, real-time data exchange flowing in from the floor, accurate ERP document status. That's it. He knows exactly what's happening, where, and by whom. That's the operational picture we're working towards. Two people, two roles, both seeing the same truth. So let's talk about what this actually means financially, because the numbers tell a pretty clear story. And we've covered this multiple times as well. But again, really good slide to use and to visualize how this actually looks like in numbers. And I want to be careful with the slide as always, because what you're looking at here is total operational cost, because I get these questions sometimes asked. It's not software pricing. This is the full cost of running inventory operations under each model. So labor, errors, rework, emergency purchases, lost productivity, the whole picture. It covers the whole thing. So now let's go through them. At the top, you've got manual checking, clipboards, end of day data entry, manual reconciliation. That ends up costing a typical operation around $10,000 per month, all in. Moving to Excel or Google Sheets helps a bit. You're at about $8,000 per month, but theirs is still there. a USB barcode scanner, that connects to a laptop or whatever. Um, that brings it down to around 4,000. And a basic barcode app on a smartphone gets you to about 2,500. Not bad. But performance, you get mobile execution, ERP integration, validation built in. So total operational cost drops to around $1,000 per month. So you know, to do the math, that's a 90% reduction in total operational costs. So saving $9,000 per month or $100,000 every year. And again, this is operational cost we're talking about, not a software discount. And hold on, I'm getting some notifications here. Got to get rid of that. And let's go to the next slide. So what does Cleverness actually look like as a product family? Let me show you. Cleverness isn't just one product. It's a family of solutions, each one designed for a specific kind of operation, but all built on the same core technology. Our flagship is Cleverness Inventory, address storage, receiving, picking, transfers, cycle counts, write-offs, all of that good stuff that is used in the warehouse. Then we have Store Ops, designed for retail and point-of-sale connected operations. Then Delivery Ops handles the last mile and route-based delivery workflows. And Factory Ops, built for manufacturing. So work orders, production tracking, materials movement. And lastly, Assets, covers asset tracking, which is a whole category of its own. What ties them together is that you can start with one and add others as the business expands without ripping anything out. And underneath all those products, the architecture works the same way. Let's look at that. At the platform level, Cleverness automates business operations that deal with real assets by capturing accurate data, tracking everything in real time, and connecting it all through mobile and connected devices. It runs on mobile. It runs on mobile and connected devices, so smartphones, tablets, rugged handhelds, so workers can do everything on the go. It uses barcode and RFID technology to give you a quick, reliable identification at every step, and it does real-time data integration with your existing ERP. So, as we talked about, information stays consistent and current across every system. And it supports customizable workflows because no two operations are alike, and the platform needs to fit your business, not the other way around. That combination, devices, data capture, integration, flexibility, is what makes the whole thing actually work in the real world. And if you're thinking, okay, this sounds great, but what does it actually take to get started? I will tell you exactly how it works. And let's look at that. Our process is deliberately straightforward because we want you to feel confident at every step. So it starts with a pre-sale brief, pick a convenient date and walk us through your project details and goals. That's it. From there, you join a dedicated chat with your project manager so you're talking to a real person who's responsible for your success. If your timeline is within the next 2 weeks, we'll set up a demo hands-on with your real scenarios. After that, you get a commercial offer tailored to your project scope and timeline, not a generic price list. And then we move into project implementation, where we actually deploy the solution and your team starts using it. 5 clear steps, no surprises. You always know exactly what's coming next. And to show you what it looks like in practice, let me share a real customer story. We got APMG. Talked about them many times, but it's a really great case that covers pretty much a lot of our clients. I want to share this case again because it's honest example of how this kind of transformation actually plays out and what makes it work. APMG is a spare parts e-commerce operation in Dubai. Big warehouse, over 10,000 square meters, 100,000 SKUs across the catalog. The warehouse was split into 2 main areas. The front half stored bulky, sometimes damaged items like windshields, and the back half had rows of plastic bins for smaller parts in address storage. Now, here's what's important. APMG was not a business with a broken ERP system. They had a perfectly functioning custom ERP that handled their commercial operations very well. The problem was a little bit different. The ERP had no location level visibility. It knew what was in stock, but it didn't know where in the warehouse it was. So pickers were spending huge amounts of time searching. Picking errors were frequent, of course, and the whole operation was slower than it needed to be. So what did we do? We didn't replace their ERP. We added a layer on top of it. We used Zebra mobile computers in the hands of the team and Cleverness software guiding every action. Delivery plans, supplier orders, cell placement, shipment collection, all of it mobile, all of it guided, all of it flowing back to the existing ERP in real time. The results were transformative. Inventory turnover ratio increased about 4 times, storage capacity expanded by over 10,000 square meters of effective use, and staff errors dropped by approximately 99%. 17 mobile devices at that time, now they have more, in active use across the whole operation. So these are typical Cleverness customer outcomes when the foundation work is done right. So just to summarize it, APMG did not need a new ERP. They needed a location level visibility added to the one they already had. That's the difference between replacement and smart automation. All right, we're getting close to the end, and I have something for everyone who's been with me today. As always, we have our PDF guide that'll be sent out. It's a practical resource. It walks you through the 5 stages of building ROI from inventory automation with real benchmarks and a clear progression you can follow. So take that away with you. Take a look at it. Again, find out your biggest pain point, and then we can, hear you out if you're interested to have that conversation. We're here for you. All right. So, and I want to mention here, it doesn't matter where you are. So it could be, like on your journey. Where you're just at the very beginning or already part way through, it'll help you figure out where you are and where the next biggest gains will come from. So you'll get it sent straight to your inbox right after the webinar. And if you want to talk about your specific situation, here's how to reach me directly. And there we go. So as always, if anything you heard today resonated, if you're recognizing your own warehouse in some of these stories, I'd genuinely love to talk. You can reach me directly. The phone number is there. The WhatsApp is there. My email, my Telegram, it's all on that page. I read every message personally, whether you want to dig into a specific operation, see a demo with your real scenarios, or just bounce ideas around, reach out. There's no pressure. There's no hard sell. It's just a conversation. We want to make sure that we're the right fit for you before, giving you a solution again that is not maybe a good fit for what you need right now. So thank you so much for spending this time with me today. It honestly means a lot. Take care of yourselves, take care of your warehouse, and I'll see you next time. That's about it. Thank you so much. All right, cheers. Bye-bye.